Visit Avery.com, Avary, for the most up-to-date news and information on Team Avery.
Avery, 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 Avery.
The Video Archives podcast with Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery is back for season 2. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to get ad-free exclusive content and bonus episodes. This is The Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avery. On season 2 of The Gala Show, I'm inviting back prior guests who told me that my 30-minute time limit was just not enough for them. For the month of December, he's a writer-director who is a frequent collaborator with the likes of Stephen King and has had a hand in some of my favorite movies. Last time he was on the show, he sat down and chatted with me all about the differences between adapted material and their original source. This time, he's got a totally new topic and we're ready to bite into it. Returning to the mic is my birthday twin and the very first guest of The Gala Show, Mick Garris.
I am humbled with pride, the sin of pride, blushing at being the first guest on The Gala Show and being asked back a second time.
I know, and also for our birthday month. Because
yeah, our birthday, 2 days after our birthday,
we're getting together,
this.
and it's just, it's so nice to see you. And I think my dad has expressed this to you countless times, but you have always been such a friend, such a supporter, and one of the most, I think, important people in my dad and my podcasting journey. So we always love you, Mick, and we always like...
Well, the feeling is very, very mutual. I mean, your podcast, as well as the one you share with Quentin and your dad, are indispensable.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Mick. So before I bring up the topic for today, I have a question for you. Everyone always asks you about horror and horror movies. So I wanted to ask, what's your favorite movie that's not a horror film?
Well, it can kind of blend into what maybe our topic is going to be today. My favorite movie of this year, one of my 3 favorite movies of this year, is Sean Baker's Anora, which is not a horror film, but it's just an intense drama comedy that is a movie that only Sean Baker could have made. And there's no rubber monsters, there's no CGI, and there's just people interacting with one another in an incredible story. And I love that. I don't just love horror, although a lot of people are embarrassed to be confined to the horror space. I'm not. I'm proud of it.
I think we've discussed in the past, it's kind of like the horror kids were like the kind of the stepchild of like some of the genre people. And
the gutter.
The gutter.
Yeah.
We're in the gutter.
And I'm proudly.
But you're proudly in the gutter.
Getting muddy with you.
Yeah, you get muddy with you. So we kind of spilled the beans on what our topic is, but Mick, why don't you tell everyone what our topic is going to be for today?
Well, let's talk about the movies that we love this year. You know, there's a handful of them that come off the top of my head that I can think of, and I'm really curious to hear your perspective because of the generational difference and all of that, and just... You have the taste of someone who grew up in the 70s. And
yeah, I do.
I think that's an amazing thing for someone who's in their 20s.
But before we get into the topic, it's time for a commercial break. Back by popular demand, the Video Archives merch store is up and running. Get your favorite t-shirts, hats, notebooks, stickers, and more at videoarchivesmerch.com. You know me. I write all my notes in the Notes on Cinema notebook, the Gala edition, of course. Check out videoarchivesmerch.com to get yours today. Hey, thanks so much for being a loyal listener. If you want to keep up with me off mic, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Gala Avery. And we're back. That's our topic for today, the movies that we loved that came out this last year. So I have 30 minutes on the clock, and our time starts now.
Bingo.
So, Mick, you mentioned Honora, which I actually haven't gotten to see. Before the mic turned on, we were talking just about Sean and Sean Baker and just how great of a guy he is.
He's not just a great filmmaker, but he's a wonderful human being. You know, when I was doing Postmortem, the whole point of that show was to interview people who made horror genre films. And Sean has never done that. He's a fan of the horror genre. But I had to have him on because his movies like Tangerine and like The Florida Project and now Honora, every movie he's made is fantastic. And then when I got to meet him to do the podcast, he's the sweetest guy in the world, and his knowledge of film is encyclopedic.
That's the thing. And also, he is someone that you'll go to the New Beverly and you'll see him at those Monday Grindhouse shows. And he's
Yeah.
really like a lover of film. And I also just love, like, I don't think Honora takes place in Los Angeles. It's a New York movie, I
Right.
think. But like Tangerine, it's a love letter to LA at Christmas time.
Completely.
It's a perfect Christmas movie if anyone's looking for a movie to watch.
A perfect unconventional Christmas movie.
But yeah, I need to see Honora still. I missed it when it was in theaters, but I have a screener of it. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that, because I think the theater experience kind of lends itself.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Sean's movies is that they're mostly on a small scale. This is on the biggest scale of any of the movies he's made.
Do you think that the scale is kind of also what's getting it so recognized by everyone right now?
Well, I think it's so bold, and it's such a star-making performance for Mikey Madison.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's amazing in it. It does deal with sexuality quite proudly and without shame.
Which most of his movies, I feel, tend to do.
They do, and it's kind of the hallmarks of what he does. But I think this particular performance is so brave and so without blinders, you know, that I think it's the kind of movie that does really well at Cannes, which indeed it won the Palme d'Or. But, you know, take or leave the whole idea of awards for art, which is kind of
Well,
ridiculous
because
to me.
it's subjective versus objective, and I
Yeah.
feel like art is 100% subjective, but maybe that's why we have so many different kinds of awards now,
Yeah,
because
it's
everyone
true.
has an opinion, just as my dad says, just like assholes, everyone has one.
Yeah, from the Chainsaw Awards, from Fangoria to the Academy Awards and all of that.
And you know, and my dad always reminds me the Academy Awards were created to sell last year's movies to this year's audience.
That's
because
true.
that's why they take place in February. So it's kind of to repump back up. And so when you realize exactly why awards are being given and who they're being given to, like I always think like we have the Disney voting block for the animation.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah, of
like, you know what's
course.
happening. And you tend to have sometimes like lifetime achievement awards for people when you're like, oh, they kind of don't deserve it for this one, but they've been nominated so many times.
Right.
But
Right.
do you think Honora's going to win?
I don't. I think it's too independent for award season. I mean, it did win the Palme d'Or.
Yeah.
And I think Mikey Madison has a great chance of being nominated and winning that. But I don't even know what the competition is. But it's also great for careers. I mean, the Oscars surely helped
Oh,
your dad and Quentin.
100%. My dad said as soon as he won his Academy Award, it's like the phone is ringing off the hook.
Right.
And Quentin, it's like we see his career after winning, and they were just two guys. My dad was 25.
Wow.
And I think about that because when I was younger, I started working with my dad when I was 15, and it was kind of like a big like monster on my back, like knowing like my dad did it at 25, like what am I going to achieve by 25? And it was always
That's unfair.
It was unfair. And I remember eventually I started getting towards 25 and my mom was like, Gala, like your dad and I, like at that age, it was kind of an anomaly. It wasn't normal to do that at 25. So don't
I didn't
worry.
even get my first screenwriting job till I was 33.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And I feel like also with social media nowadays and like my generation, you have also like TV shows like, I'm going to just pick one like MasterChef Kids.
Yeah.
And children are being expected to be locked into this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life at like 7 years old and be an expert in it. I think that's ludicrous.
Well, you see America's Got Talent, and whenever they have little kids on there, I think, you are ruining this child's life. They should not have kids on America's Got Talent, on a talent competition with one another, with adults, very seasoned adults.
I
It just
agree.
kind of disgusts me.
Well, no, I completely agree also because I talk to these like I have like these kind of like 20, like early 20s friends that I've met like at this coffee shop that I go to, and they all work there, and then it's like an incubator, and then they get their first job there, and then they graduate and they go off to
Oh, that's
college and
great.
stuff.
It's what used to be the video
It's what
store.
used to be the video store, but they all work at this like little boba shop, and I love them so much. But one of them was like, I've always wanted to be an EMT. It's like my track. I've been doing it.
Wow.
And then he got this opportunity to go work at a startup and to do some kind of like healthcare thing there. And he was so stressed because the idea of having to like kind of leave behind something else to take something else. And he's like, but if I take this, I have to do it for the rest of my life. And I said, no, you don't. You can go do your startup thing for a few years. If it doesn't work out, do something else.
And that's a big gamble going the startup route.
Yeah, it's a big gamble, but I think he took it, and I think he's pretty happy with it. So
That's great.
I just think people need to be a little more flexible with what they're
Plus,
doing.
our industry, the film and television industry, is so different from what it used to be.
Oh yeah,
You
night
know,
and day.
I would hate to be a new young filmmaker starting out right now, because I don't know where you'd start. I don't know how you'd make a living. Again, I started at 33 and was working in car washes and shining shoes and doing pretty menial tasks beforehand, and a lot of those jobs don't exist anymore. It's baristas and waiters.
Yeah, I also just think it's interesting because like I have a lot of people ask me like, how do you start? And it's like you just have to start, but you have to persevere
Yes.
through everything, because it's really easy at a certain point just to say, okay, well, I'm just going to stop.
Yep.
But I do think the industry is 100% different than what it used to be. And Mick and I were kind of talking beforehand, like, where are the spaces for certain people? Like, and I think it's mostly like a producer driven world now. They want to
Yeah.
take the artist out of it because the artist is the one who makes all the ideas and who makes something special. But when you remove an artist from an equation, you're able to control a situation. And so I think that's kind of what's happening. But I feel like people will rebel against it.
Well, I think even more than producers, it's studios and
Oh, for sure.
conglomerates. They want product. They don't want art. And if you're lucky, you can have artistic product. But it mostly comes from the independent world. Once in a while, you'll get a Marvel movie that is something special.
Yeah, like for me, it was Ant-Man. I really loved Ant-Man.
Yeah.
I loved Ant-Man. It's funny though, thinking about it, one movie that I really loved this last year that I saw, and I think it's because of the name of the director that it was able to get made. And it's just, he always makes a wacky movie, but Trap, M. Night Shyamalan's Trap.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
had so much fun seeing that movie in the theaters. It
I
was
enjoyed
a
it,
blast.
but I felt a little
it
bit
went
like
on too long.
like, Daddy, can I please be Taylor Swift in a movie?
It did feel like that, but it's funny because when the movie started, I went with my friends to go see it at the Burbank AMC. And we're starting the movie, and I'm like, oh my God, it's as if my dad and I went to a Carly Rae Jepsen concert, and my dad was a serial killer, and they've made the concert to trap him. And I keep on telling Dad now, like, Dad, you and my mom have to watch this movie. Like, you're going to think it's really funny.
It's the Avery family film.
It's the
yes.
Avery family film of the year. But I thought it went on too long. But like, for me, I can have product and just like go and have a fun time at the movies.
Absolutely. I mean, movies were never intended to be high art. The cinema always existed. There was always artistic cinema from the beginning of it. But once it became something for mass entertainment, there was no television, there was no internet, there was no streaming, and you had to go to a movie theater, and they're not going to gamble on something they think a handful of college academics are going to be interested in. But it was always meant for mass entertainment, musicals and westerns and dramas and
Popcorn
even the
pushers.
Popcorn and big experiences, rather than Marvel movie experiences. You had Cleopatra, and you had the
Lawrence of Arabia,
and just big scale things that were artistic, or they were meant to be big exhibition shows. They would have intermissions and
we should bring intermissions back. I'm so tired of like 3-hour movies without an intermission.
I know. And
I need
boy,
to
there's
get
never
up and
been
pee.
more. There's never been more 3-hour movies than the last few years.
And I wonder about that. Like, is it because someone told me it was because like people just don't know how to edit anymore, or like they don't have enough time to edit?
Well, I think it's got more to do with ego than anything else.
Yeah, you think so?
I think somebody is proclaimed a genius director and their next movie is guaranteed to be 3 hours long.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because it's like you can do anything, but maybe also I think a lot of people now because of streaming end up watching things bifurcated like in chunks.
Yeah, which I'll never understand, but
I can't
closest
do it.
friends of mine will do that. Oh, I started watching so and so. I'm interested in seeing where it goes. Well, then sit down and watch the rest.
For me, it's like if I start watching a movie and I stop it midway through and I come pick it back up, I have really weird dreams that night.
Really?
I always have really weird dreams, like kind of about the movie and stuff. And like maybe it's because I don't know where it's going and I don't know what's happening. Every now and then I can turn on a part of a movie, but I typically have to have seen it.
Yeah,
Like I can
it
turn
can't
on,
be your first experience.
I can turn on Bugsy Malone and I can just plop it at any time, or I
Bugsy
can yeah,
Malone.
ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da-da. And I can turn on stuff like that at any moment. And I'm
Do
just
you
like,
remember your dreams?
oh yeah, I have really intense, vivid dreams. I
Every
can,
night?
not every night, but most nights. And I can smell in my dreams.
Ooh.
I've lucid dreamed before. I've been suffocated in my dream.
Oh, wow.
I've had all different kinds of things happen, but I have very vivid dreams. I'm not quite sure why exactly, but just always like from a child, I've had really, really intense
Wow,
dreams.
lucky you.
I know, I feel really lucky, but I have friends who say like I never dream or I've never had them. And I always tell them the way I think to start remembering your dreams is to just start writing down like the little bits that you do or just to tell someone about them. And then you'll just start to recall more and more.
Yeah, I know that I dream because everybody does, but I don't remember them. Once in a great while I do. And in fact, my first Masters of Horror film, Chocolate, was based on a short story that was inspired by a dream that I had.
Wow.
So it's the one time I dreamed and put it into something that became something.
Yeah. Now, Mick, I have to ask your opinion on The Substance because you told me that it's like one of your favorite movies, if not your favorite.
It is my favorite
It is your
movie
favorite
of the
movie
year.
And I have to admit before I didn't really like it.
Really?
Yes, I really want to know what it is because I want to see it through your eyes, especially because you're like a fellow Angelino.
Yeah.
And it's like an LA movie.
Yeah.
But for me, it didn't feel like an LA movie. So I want to hear from you.
Well, it's an LA movie made by
It's an
a
LA
French
movie
woman.
made by a French woman. I don't think they ever once stepped foot in LA. I think it's all on soundstage.
I don't think it was shot in LA.
No, I think it's shot in France on sound stages.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the experience of the movie business felt genuine to me, even if the location had to feel other than Hollywood. Like you said, we were both born and raised here. So.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge fan of Coralie Fargia. When I saw her film Revenge, her first film, I thought, this is one of the most polished and accomplished first-time films, feature films I've ever seen. And it blew me away. And I tracked her down to Paris and had her on the podcast via Zoom in the early days of Zoom. And I was just knocked out by it. And so when I went and saw The Substance, it blew me away. I thought, first of all, I was so thrilled to see a female filmmaker doing a body horror film that did not shy away from the sexuality of it, that just it poked a finger in the eye of Hollywood in such an eloquent way. And the performances of Margaret Qualley, who, of course, I first saw in Quentin's movie, and Demi Moore, a 62-year-old woman doing full nudity and everything.
And it's crazy because also I think she's fully nude, and I think Margaret Qualley has breast prosthetics on.
Right,
I saw in the
so they would
so
match.
they match.
Yeah.
But so it is really brave of Demi Moore. I can't believe she's 62. Also, it's like I didn't even really realize that I didn't register it until you just said it.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, she's just great. She's beautiful, and it wouldn't matter if she weren't beautiful because that's what the story is about. But I just thought it worked on all the levels that David Cronenberg's body horror movies worked on. And yet it came from a French female filmmaker. And I love when a female filmmaker is as bold as a male filmmaker or bolder. And it happens plenty of times, but not often enough.
I also, for me, like going to go see it was actually a really special experience. So I went with like six friends, I think, to the Burbank AMC.
Yeah.
I love going to go see movies at the Burbank
I go to
AMC.
Burbank a lot.
It's like it's the people's theater. I
Yeah.
like being with just like regular moviegoers that are not necessarily like stuck up or
Cineasts.
cineasts or
Yeah.
like building up something to maybe put it on a pedestal. Like I like just like when it's like you go and you see people that are just on date night and it's like what's playing this week? We're gonna
Right.
go check out this weird movie.
But I go daytime all the time.
Oh, I mean, have you noticed that they've gotten rid of like all the 10 a.m. shows?
Most of them, yeah.
It's really,
But
because I like to go to the movies at like 10 a.m. because I
yeah,
can
when
kind of,
it's like a personal screening for
yeah,
you.
it feels like a personal. And my mom and I will go, and then I can
Oh,
do the
that's
rest
great.
of my day. And
Yeah.
she can go do the rest of her day, but we get like a kind of 10 a.m. movie in together. But I've noticed that a lot of the AMC's don't start showing stuff until 2 p.m. nowadays, which it kind of makes me miss that 10 a.m. noon slot. But I went to go see it with like six friends. I think two or three of them had seen it at Beyond Fest.
Ah,
And then they were coming back for their second viewing. And then a few of us hadn't seen it. And I was sober because I don't do that kind of stuff. And
likewise.
like, yeah, I know, twinning. But
Twins.
I was sober. And some people, though, were like stoned out of their mind. And so it was interesting. I don't always
Did
think.
they enjoy it
Oh,
more?
they loved it. Oh my God, they loved it. They were having the best time of their life.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in an obnoxious way because sometimes I feel like people can go to the theaters and be like loud and obnoxious. They
Yeah.
were like respectful, and then afterwards when we talked about it they were just like their mind was blown, etc.
Well, I'm very curious why it didn't connect to you.
I don't know, it was like there were
Because it didn't feel genuinely LA.
for me not just that, but also it's like when I was watching it there were so many moments where I felt like it was a missed opportunity. And like for example, when she gets in that car accident, and that's kind of the first time that she's introduced to the idea of what the substance is by the male nurse who has been taking the substance. Okay, first, like if she had lost the ability to walk or something, okay, I could really understand her like desperately, like I need another thing. But also, the male nurse, if you were taking the substance, why would your job be a trauma nurse in Los Angeles? Like, if I had a hot, young, new body, I don't want to go be a trauma nurse. Like, that's like the worst thing to go do.
Well, you meet great people.
You meet great people, you pass it along. I didn't like, some things just felt like a disconnect for me. Like, the fact that she's like, I guess she's like buns of steel. That's kind of like what she's doing. Abs of steel, buns of steel, right? Like those old tapes.
Yeah.
And but then like she's got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like it just like there were some things that just felt like disconnected. Like they
Yeah.
weren't.
It was a little Jane Fonda.
It was it was a little bit too
the Jane
disconnected
Fonda
for me.
workout.
And then there were things I appreciated like how far they went, like in the scene where Demi Moore is like in the chair and just like snap her leg to like
Yeah.
get up to get the thing and stuff like that. But they went like too far and not far enough in some places. Like the
Interesting.
ending, like I could feel the cariness of it looming
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
And I wanted the cariness to happen, but then it didn't.
Yeah.
It was like there were a few missed pieces, but my friend who had seen it once before that I went with told me afterwards that after she made her first movie and it was a success, or the last movie that she had made and it was a success, that Warner Brothers basically gave her like this, I guess they were trying to send her scripts like make this, make this, make
Really?
this, and she wasn't really interested. And so she said, well, why don't I just like go and write a script and make a movie? And so Warner Brothers just gave her the money to go do it.
Really?
And she went and made the movie, and then when Warner Brothers saw it, they were like, what is this?
Horrified.
What have you done? And I think it went into
Really? So
brief
Warner's
turnaround.
financed
I
it.
think it went into turnaround.
Really? And Mubi picked it up,
And then Mubi picked it up, and then it's
which
been this,
is unheard of. I'd never heard of them putting out a theatrical in as wide as the subs.
So that's like the story that I've heard. So you know what? Props to her, because that's
Yeah.
like that's killer. That's exactly I think what we're talking about of like what movies should be, because
Yeah.
movies should be an artist that takes the money, goes off and makes it, and then makes what they want to make.
Yeah, because there is an audience for that.
Oh, clearly,
And,
I mean,
you know, it doesn't have to play in 3,000 theaters.
no.
You know, it can play in 100 theaters and make its money back and then some. And then it goes the streaming route. And, you know,
I think just also there was such an audience for it, and it hit not just with men but with women also. And I think it's because it's a female director, and so it's like you don't have. I hate the term the male gaze. I hate it. I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I totally don't believe in it.
No.
I like the male gaze.
Yeah, when
I love it. Why not?
I listened to you on the Video Archive show, and I love your perspective on that.
Thank you. But in this case, you have the female gaze, and it's kind of a woman judging other women.
Yeah.
So it's a nice layering addition because
Yeah.
you have like a younger woman judging an older woman, and she's also judging herself.
Yep.
And so, and
In the harshest
in
Hollywood
the harshest
terms.
Hollywood terms, and also I think women tend to be the harshest judges of other women. We usually like to blame men and say, "Oh, men are the ones," but it's always the woman that will notice if you don't have your nails done, or your makeup's wrong, or your clothing doesn't fit quite right, or your jewelry doesn't match. It's always
Yeah.
they'll look at your shoes.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
a woman.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So you told me there was a third movie that you really loved this year. I don't know which one it is yet, though.
Heretic.
Oh, I haven't seen that either.
Heretic, and it's a horror movie. It's by Beck and Woods, the guys who wrote,
A Quiet Place?
A Quiet Place. And it's very different. Hugh Grant is so fucking great in it and so scary in it.
Oh, it's the movie. It's the girls, and they
About
come
the
over
Mormon girls
and they
who-
they
yeah.
smell the blueberry candle, and they realize that he's not really making a pie in the oven. I saw the
Yes,
trailer for this.
yes.
Was this really good?
It's terrific. And Beck and Woods are really terrific writers, but who knew they would be such terrific directors? They made a movie called Haunt after they wrote Quiet Place. But this is the first movie they've directed since then. And Haunt is small, and it's really good, but it's not as ambitious. This is high ambition, and it touches on the church, and it touches on, this, Hugh Grant is charming as hell.
He's always that's the thing. Also, is he's like a rom-com guy in my opinion.
Well, that's his reputation, and they use that to make him a frightening character who has oozing charm. And it's a movie I highly recommend you see. And as of this recording, it's still in theaters. So
oh, then I should go see it in theaters. I should get out there and go make some time. Find a 10 a.m. showing of it and take my
there you
mom
go.
to it.
Yeah. But Beck and Woods are really talented guys, and I'd never seen them go so deep into a storyline that is more than just a scare you story.
When you're watching a horror movie, like, what are the aspects that you're looking at, the elements that actually like make it meaningful to you, make it good?
Not looking for any of them, having it affect me in ways I don't expect. I don't go in with expectations other than I try not to see trailers. I hate watching trailers online, and I just want to know as little as possible about it other than just enough to know to get me into the theater what the storyline is or who's in it or whatever. But I'm looking for a movie that takes me places I don't expect, but makes sense doing it. It doesn't just take left turns for the sake of left turns. But this was one I did not expect. Here's these two young girls who go to proselytize from door to door to door to door, and they come to Hugh Grant's place. And yes, I'd love to talk to you about that. And it's, oh boy, jackpot. Everybody's always slamming the door in our faces. And these two innocent young girls are in the
House of Horror.
House of Horror, exactly. And it's like, they have opportunities to leave, but they don't. And it's the young females who are in the thrall of an older, more powerful man. And it really uses it so well. It's so smart. And I'm dying for you to see it, so we can talk about it even
if it's still
more fully.
if it's still in theaters, I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah.
Because I love a theater experience. Like one of my favorite theater experiences, I did not like the movie, but Twisters. I saw Twisters in 4DX.
Oh, wow.
And it was my first 4DX experience.
I've never done a 4DX.
Oh my gosh, Mick. Okay, well if Twisters comes back, because
we tried. We went to Burbank 16 to
Yeah.
see it, and it wasn't in 4DX there.
Oh no, I forget where the theater is, but they we were supposed to see Twister and Twisters back to back in
Oh, my
4DX,
God.
and then they changed the screening of Twister to Twisters.
Oh.
And so we were like, well, we're not going to see it twice like
Yeah,
that. So
I
we're
would
just going to
think
see
not.
Twisters. But man, that like threw me around, and it, like I never felt more patriotic, and you really feel like you're in the movie. Like when
Wow.
the wind is whipping, and like in the theater the wind is coming, there's rain
Oh,
falling
how
down.
amazing.
It's like being on a theme park ride. It was really fun. I didn't like the movie, but I had such a great experience.
I know.
It's funny. I agree with you. I really don't like trailers, but there was a time in my life, I think, when trailers were useful. I don't know if you remember, but like Apple used to have like on their website, they would have movie trailers.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
as a kid, when
Apple
as a
trailer.
kid, when I lived in Ojai, I used to like watch every single trailer that came out. And then I remember I saw the trailer for Let the Right One In. And I asked my dad to take me to the one screening of it, like in Hollywood.
Oh, no, this was the
No,
foreign
this was
version
the
because
foreign
the American
version.
ones let me in.
Yeah, let me in, yeah. No, and I asked him, and he actually drove me all the way to Hollywood to go
Yeah.
see Let the Right One In with him. And it was
Yeah, where did you go to the movies when you lived in Ojai?
well,
I know
we
they
had
had
we
one
had
theater.
the one theater, so we had the Ojai Playhouse, but
It's been closed down
well,
for like...
when I moved, there was a fire and then a flood, and I think then it was supposed to turn into a restaurant, and then someone did buy it to refurbish it into a theater, apparently.
Yeah, it
so they're
hasn't
gonna
reopened.
No, but they just repurchased it, I think, to
Oh,
do that. So
really?
I think they're planning on it. But in Ventura, there's like a Cinemark or
that's not that
something.
far.
No, it's not that far, but it was like I didn't go to the movies that much as a kid. Like my dad would take me to screenings in LA and stuff with him, like when he had to go.
Right.
But it wasn't like I really had like a dedicated, like if the Ojai Playhouse had been bigger, I would have worked there.
Yeah,
But it wasn't.
yeah,
It was a
that's
single screen, no air conditioning.
Oh,
like,
really?
And I didn't have a car. Like at that time, I think the flood happened by the time I got a car. So it was just like
Bart's Books is one of my favorite things about
Yeah.
Ojai.
my parents are one of the people that helped donate all the trees for Bart's Books
Really?
because I think they had to chop down all their trees, or they had a fire or
Wow.
something years and years ago, and they asked for donations, so everyone donated, and then they said, well, we're going to get not oak trees, and so a bunch of people pulled back their donations, and my parents
Oh.
were like, okay, we'll still donate. So I always think about that with Bart's Books. So when I ever see the
yeah.
trees, I'm like, oh, my
It's a
parents
great
helped.
place
My
for
parents-
anybody who's never been to Ojai. Should you find yourself there, you got to go to Bart's Books.
Did you see It's What's Inside this year on Netflix? Oh,
No.
Mick. Oh,
Really? Okay, now we're even. There's one you saw.
I had the opportunity to interview the director Greg Jardin about this movie, but it's like a bunch of people go to a house for a kind of like a bachelor party, like they're about to get married, and someone shows up and they're like, I have this game that we can play, and they have this machine that allows you to swap bodies.
Oh,
And they
wow.
kind of play this game where it's like you have to guess who's who, and the night devolves into like this kind of horrific events, but it's like science fiction horror. The idea is so good, but what's even better about it, in my opinion, is the acting.
Really? Anybody we know, or are they independent?
They're all like young kids, kind
Yeah.
of like Brittany O'Grady, James Morosini, like all these kind of like, I don't know, they're fresh faces, but what they're doing is they're acting as themselves, and the characterization's so good that when another person is in their body, they're able to act like them.
Oh, interesting.
And it was a Netflix like
It's What's
original.
Inside.
It's What's Inside. This is one that I think everyone before the end of the year should
Is
check
that your
out.
favorite movie this year?
No, my favorite movie this year is I'm gonna go see Sonic 3. I know Sonic 3 is gonna be my favorite of the year. I can just preempt. I'm seeing it on the 21st. But my
I
favorite,
like the writers. They're great guys.
I love Sonic. I grew up playing the games. So I loved The Beekeeper. I saw the Jason
Oh,
Statham movie, The
yeah.
Beekeeper, with my
Yeah,
mom
yeah.
at the beginning of the year, and I had so much fun. I love the message behind it. I think people need to stop like scamming the elderly.
Yeah.
Like my grandpa keeps getting scammed.
Really?
Yeah, they've
Does he
gotten.
fall for it?
Well, you know what? They've gotten just really good at it because they had someone call that he's really hard of hearing, and they had someone call pretending to be my dad, and not like they've known what my family has gone through, but they said, I've been in a terrible car accident. I need to get bailed out of jail. Can you send me $5,000? Don't call my wife and kids because I'm embarrassed of what's happened. And so my grandpa started driving to the bank to go send the wire.
No.
And then he was like, you know what? I should just call Roger just to like call him back. And so he called and my dad picked up just by chance. And he was like, no, that was not me. Don't send money.
And that's
by
the most
way,
common scam out
yeah.
there.
And by the way, I will never tell you not to call Gala and Gretchen and Ever. I will
Yeah.
never tell you not to do that.
Wow.
But it happens all the time, and they've gotten really good with the voice, like the AI voices now.
Right,
They can just like pretend to be anyone. But I think it's like lowest of the low to scam those that are like hard of hearing or
No
like
kidding. No
like
kidding.
anyone that's just like that. And then I saw one other movie this year. I was in a film festival and I saw this movie. I don't think it's been released, but this movie called Vampire Zombies from Space.
That would be a movie that, despite my involvement in the genre, would turn me off from the title.
It was just really funny though, because it's like a they're kind of making fun of the 50s movies a little bit, but they do it so well.
Yeah.
And it just was it was a fun movie to watch. I kind of need to rewatch it though, because when you're in those festivals, you're watching
Yeah.
I think I watched 10 movies and like 40 short films. Why were there 40 short films? I don't know.
Wow. Yeah.
But my timer went off, so that's all the time that we have for today. But Mick, is there any final thought you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, there's one more movie that we didn't talk about that I've told you about and you haven't seen yet.
I know, I haven't seen it yet.
I saw it late last year at a festival, but it became available this year, and it's called The Coffee Table. Have to be really careful about who you recommend it to.
Okay.
One person I recommended it to said to me, I have a 2-year-old child, don't you? This will make sense to you after you see the movie.
Okay.
And I said, no, I didn't know that. And it kept him from enjoying the movie.
Wow.
But it's really intense. I kept hearing at the festival, oh, it's really intense, but it's really funny. It's a Spanish film with subtitles. Director Calle Casas did it. And I recommended it to Stephen King. And he loved it and posted a quote that changed Calle's life. This is a guy who was selling toys for a living and made this movie for nothing. And now everybody's going, what have you got next? What have you got next?
Oh, that's
And so-
amazing.
yeah. So,
The Coffee Table. Do you know where it's streaming, or is it just kind of all
it's
over?
on demand.
Oh, that's
So,
great. Okay,
yeah, I
so
think
it's easily accessible.
all over the place. But La Mesita del Comedor in Spanish.
Okay. So your choices this year are The Substance,
Yeah.
Heretic,
Yeah.
Honora, and The Coffee Table.
Yeah. And yours.
Mine, The Beekeeper,
And
Trapped.
It's What's Inside. And
It's What's
Trapped.
Inside, and maybe Vampire Zombies from Outer Space.
Oh, okay. There is a good list.
There's a few movies that I missed this year, so maybe I'm going to revise my list. I'll
Yeah.
go home and I'll go to the movies, watch Heretic, finally catch Honora,
Yep, you got to. Those
and The
are,
Coffee Table.
Those are your assignments
Those
for the
are,
week.
I have your mission if you choose to accept it. And
I hope you did.
I'm choosing to accept it. So that's it for today. Thanks again, Mick, for coming on to the show. You're one of my favorite people to have on. I am
Well,
always
you're one of my favorite people to be on a podcast with.
yeah, to be in Nice Guy.
Nice Guy Productions World Headquarters overlooking the glamorous San Fernando Valley.
As always, you can keep up with Mick on his Instagram at Mick Garris PM. And Mick, do you have Twitter or anything?
Yeah, I do Twitter, same.
Or X or whatever they call it
And-
now.
Yeah, X. And I'm on Facebook, just me personally, as well as Postmortem Podcasts.
Yeah, you can find Mick.
Even though there
all
is
over.
no Postmortem Podcast.
You never know. One episode might pop up one day, just
That's
randomly,
true.
eventually.
And we still have them available, all 250 or 80.
Yeah,
so-
if you haven't heard Postmortem, I mean, what are you doing? Go listen to Postmortem. Turn this off and go listen to that. So,
When you're done with this.
well, we're wrapping up, so now they can go. I'm Gala Avery, and this has been The Gala Show. The Gala Show is brought to you by Avery.com. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avery and produced by Gala Avery. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avery. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. Despite me sharing the same last name with this charity, I don't have any affiliation with it, besides the fact that the issue is very near and dear to my heart. Did you know that in the United States, 2.7 million children currently have a parent in prison, and it's estimated that 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives? I was one of these kids, and as an adult, I am really grateful to be able to give back to Project Avery. Their mission is to build leadership from within by supporting community through programs such as mentoring and outdoor education. and also to remove the stigma surrounding having a parent that's incarcerated. You don't have to feel alone. If you know a kid who could use these resources or would like to donate money or time to the charity, please go to Project Avery, that's AVARY.org, to check out what this amazing charity is all about. Again, that's projectavery.org. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.